ALS is a progressive disease that often renders people incapable of moving, eventually making them a prisoner inside their own bodies. These families I spoke with have been taking care of loved ones for years, but say it can be too much at times to do it all on their own. That's why they're fighting for a small, long-term care facility just for people with ALS. When it comes to Filipino food,
adobo fried rice,
Divina Robillard serves it up with love. So she might have taken offense by her husband's favorite food.
hot dogs. You wanted a hot dog.
But good thing, she is even more passionate about her love for him than the food she makes.
Oh, yes, that's another thing that's really frustrating for somebody who couldn't eat, is that he loved to eat. His illness really just progressed. He lost his ability to speak. Imagine that kind of restriction on a person who is very articulate and very socially engaged.
They had been married just 2 years when Britt started showing symptoms of ALS.
Because I was 29 when I got married. At 31, he was diagnosed.
Despite Britt's inability to move, he kept working as a sociology professor at UH. He wrote several books on being disabled. She helped him do it as his full-time caregiver.
Chest percussions, cleaning and setting up. There's so many things that we need to do in home care. He just aged naturally until his passing in 6 years ago.
While he was sick, a college friend of his called to reconnect. Divina told him about the disease. The now .com millionaire friend renovated their home. They had it better than most.
The biggest thing that we have made a change of in the house is the ceiling lift.
Divina still brought him to work every day and took care of their young son, born after Britt was diagnosed. They had a rhythm to their lives until it skipped a beat.
I had breast cancer when my son was 10 years old. And during that time, I did not know how to take care of myself. I always had that in mind. What is going to happen to me and Britt?
That's why she's advocating for a full-time ALS care facility.
This is not the kind of facility that will create just vegetables of them.
She's now a 22-year breast cancer survivor running the ALS Foundation of Hawaii.
Has its own set of challenges.
Absolutely.
Catherine O'Connor helped Divina start the foundation to advocate for the facility.
He had the biggest smile. Matter of fact.
Hi, Brian.
We did a story with Catherine and her little brother, Brian Burke, a decade ago about their problems with Medicaid. This was taken before ALS prevented him from keeping up with his own moving business.
What are you doing today?
He found himself homeless after he couldn't physically do the job until his big sister got him into a care facility.
Big teddy bear. He had a heart of gold. I feel that with an ALS residence, he would still be alive because, you know, certain things that happened would not have happened.
Catherine visited Brian at the general care facility daily, but Brian developed bed sores, had a hard time getting medical care, and was usually uncomfortable until she arrived.
I think what was the most difficult for me was knowing, seeing his quality of life or lack thereof, and knowing that there was something better out there that was not available for him here and for other ALS patients here.
It has come together before. There's a facility in Massachusetts that focuses on ALS.
Do you take cream?
Catherine and Divina have tried to get the ball rolling for a specialized facility here. They've had preliminary conversations with St. Francis Healthcare System. Those folks told me they would love to help, but it would take a combination of federal, legislative, and nonprofit support. They would need extra staff, which is a hard ask nowadays. For Divina and Catherine, the wish for a place for their family members has been replaced by a dream for others.
The hope was that maybe he could be our first resident, but it's taking us longer to get off the ground, and he didn't last long enough. But it can help many other families.
I know that having an ALS Care Facility will allow families like us to be provided with the care that we need over time.
In the coming days, we'll also introduce you to patients and their loved ones who are fighting to improve care for those who are chronically ill.
So much things I wish I could have done with him.
We'll show you how families struggle to fill the gaps in the healthcare and social service systems meant to help them. ALS is a rare disease. Only about 5 people in a group of 100,000 will develop it. But to many families in Hawaii dealing with other illnesses, what patients with ALS are grappling with is familiar. The same healthcare and long-term care hurdles. Tomorrow, we take a closer look at what those are. Samie, Solina, Hawaii News Now. Yesterday, we introduced you to 2 women whose loved ones passed away from ALS. But anyone who has to provide full-time care for their loved ones run into similar problems regardless of their diagnosis.
Welcome to a Medicare Moment with Martha. I'm your host, Martha Clopin.
There's a reason why she has the nickname.
People call me Medicare Martha.
Why she has the radio show.
What is covered for beneficiaries?
Because people have questions.
And he was calling about his brother-in-law.
Lots of them.
This week, I'm going to take a little bit of a deep dive into Medicare and what we know as Lou Gehrig's disease.
Martha has decades of insurance experience and owns a company that helps people navigate the often baffling and frustrating healthcare system. Today's episode is about ALS, and she's talking about a recent rule change that will help individuals get support earlier.
If you were diagnosed with ALS, you now do not have to wait 24 months. You don't have to wait 5 months. You will be allowed to get your disability right away, and your Medicare coverage can start right away as well.
There are around 100 patients living with ALS in the state. Hawaii Pacific Health neurologist Brandon Hirota actively treats 10 of them.
So this is a neurodegenerative disorder, and that means that a certain group of cells within the nervous system, including the brain, the spinal cord, these group of cells are dying off.
Hirota says most of the patients he encounters opt to stay at home and have family members care for them for the rest of their lives, which is usually 3 to 5 years after diagnosis. But there are people who live much longer.
There's a huge spectrum of life expectancy with these patients. I've had patients that from diagnosis, they only lived a year. And on the other side of the spectrum, I have patients exactly who are about 15 years out with still mild minimal symptoms. And why is that? Nobody really quite knows yet, unfortunately.
Welcome back to a Medicare Moment with Martha.
Martha says that while ALS is relatively rare, affecting about 5 in a group of 100,000, the 24/7 care people need is similar to other chronic diseases.
Health insurance is going to generally take care of what's specifically medically necessary. So they may have to be the 24/7 person who's there to bring a glass of water, to take their medication, to help them toilet.
Essentially, many people are on their own for the daily needs of a loved one because of how insurance works. In fact, 1 in 5 adults in Hawaii identify themselves as caregivers. That's 20% of the adult population. Half say they provided care for a loved one for at least 2 years. About a third provide care for at least 20 hours a week. AARP says that adds up to 157,000 residents, providing altogether 131 million hours of care each year. If you paid them for that work, it would be valued at more than $2 billion.
It's really important that we figure out a way to fill those gaps.
Martha says the numbers underscore just how overburdened caregivers are, a situation likely to grow even more acute as Hawaii's population continues to grow.
There's a lot of other critical illnesses that people can relate to because it will follow the same pattern as what you need to do.
Throughout the years, she has seen countless diagnoses change lives. She has seen families go bankrupt, sometimes quitting their jobs to take care of loved ones.
A lot of things are not automatic.
For someone who answers questions about so many different illnesses, she says it's amazing to hear so many similar problems.
So that's the same reason why I think this should be important to anyone who's listening. You have to understand that these conditions can come about at any time unexpectedly, and you won't know where to go.
She says that's why we should care about what happens to a relatively small ALS facility.
Once again, I want to thank you for listening to a Medicare Moment with Martha.
Because that means we care about everyone looking after loved ones who couldn't make it on their own.
I wish you peace in your heart, peace in your mind, and peace in your life.
Tomorrow, we conclude our series with a family that knows the struggle better than most, with children who have never known what it's like to have a healthy dad. Samie, Solina, Hawaii News Now. Last night, we talked about how caregivers, regardless of their loved one's diagnosis, run into a lot of the same problems. One solution that could help families dealing with ALS could be a specialized long-term care facility.
Okay.
Bedside songs, stories,
every time I come home, tell him stuff that I did better in volleyball.
family,
I check on him a lot every day.
and a lot of time to think. That's what fills Risa Fuima'ono's life.
Aloha. My name is Risada Sonfa Ma'ono. I have been diagnosed with ALS and have lived with this disease for almost 14 years. Sitting on a chair or laying on a bed, doing nothing, is harder than anyone can imagine.
Risa's older kids were just babies when he was diagnosed with ALS. His youngest wasn't even born yet.
I'm feeding my dad's water right now.
It's a neuromuscular disease. For Risa, it means he can't move his body and he needs help with the simplest tasks: breathing, eating, talking.
Bye. P.O. Pasao.
But his mind is still healthy.
I use the Samoan alphabet because it's shorter. So we would spell out the words. That's how we guess what he wants. His eyes would do the yes and no.
Mona has been my arms and legs over the years, and I could not ask for a better companion, wife, caregiver, and mother to our precious children. She is the best.
The best. Is that right? Yes. His eyes are going to the right. That means yes. Yeah, he'll describe me that way. The best. Everything. I know he's very thankful. You know, there's times when he'll tell me how thankful he is of me.
She does it with grace. She gets financial help from the state to be a full-time caregiver. That, along with Risa's Social Security benefits, is what the family of 5 lives on.
Even though it's a small house, a little bit, our house is full of love.
For families living with ALS, they are faced with the same challenges every day. Taking care of their loved ones is a daily routine. My wife, Mona, takes care of me 24/7, along with the help of my kids.
Now his kids are old enough to help Dad
We ask him what he needs.
and to realize that he won't get better.
Sometimes it hits me, when I see other people with their dads and just thinking that could have been us with our dad.
Especially our son. To not have, I've heard him many times. He wishes that he had, the father-son relationship where they can go out, play ball, be physically, yeah?
Well, he's my dad. There's so much things I wish I could have done with him.
Watching my family every day doing everything for me, especially seeing my children grow before my eyes and not being able to physically be involved in their lives, is devastating.
What Mona and other families are fighting for is a long-term care facility for ALS patients. Risa says it would give him one less thing to think about.
It's not that easy to just get up and go. You had to make sure, train somebody.
It can give caregivers and family relief and break any time as needed. I will find comfort that my life will be in good hands.
My dad played too. And I never seen him play, but I heard he was pretty good. Just hope he can be proud of me. So yeah.
Risa has a lot of time to think about his family, about the future.
Just to know that he's grateful, it's good enough for me. Yeah.
Some think that people with ALS must live empty lives.
They are my world and my reason for continuing to live.
But with the right care, their lives are full of love.